This entry of the InterSystems Bringing Ideas to Reality contest was created by the Lead North Innovations Group. The team for the IRIS unit test dashboard was Chantel Madison Coker, Chi Win-Reddick, myself, and Andre Rivera. There were three components to the solution. So the front end, the UI, was done in React. The back end, APIs and utility classes were created in Cache Object Script, and there is an interoperability namespace in production with a sample HL7 integration and unit test classes. The idea that we are bringing to reality is the testing dashboard for InterSystems Iris. The idea proposes to create a testing dashboard for InterSystems Iris that would provide a centralized view of all testing activity. This would make it easier for developers to track the progress of their tests, identify any test failures, and take corrective action. The design is based around a unit testing dashboard that connects the back end of the Iris production to a user interface that's easy to read. That dashboard will show the unit test classes as well as the results of their run, and also allows users to run the tests in the project from the front end. After cloning the repository, in VS Code, you can start the Docker container by right-clicking on Docker Compose and using Compose Up or Compose Restart, and that will spin up the Docker with containers for both the Iris instance and for the dashboard as well. Everything is based around this production in the Iris app namespace. It's very common in projects to have multiple interfaces or feeds within a production. And this production right here, deliberately, there are 2 inbounds that are off, 2 services that are off, 3 that are on. And it is just a sample HL7 that's been created. In there, you see the routers. There are transforms. It uses the routing rules for Iris. The operations are off, but that shouldn't matter because we are just running unit tests, and the unit tests will be checking on the status of the router configurations and also the transformations. The unit testing dashboard shows what is the current status of the unit tests. When you first come in, you may see some results. If you click on settings, the initial setting says use sample data when API fails, and that is just for our demo purposes. This is the sample data, but it also gives a nice view into what the API is returning in the back end. If you click that off, that means that what you see will be the real-time results from the system. Some other features, the test results API, it's exposed here, so it could be pointed to a different instance if needed. And right here, this is the run all tests URL. Again, you can point it to whichever instance you wish to look at. I close that here. Other features, it refreshes every 2 minutes, but you can force a refresh by using the refresh icon right here. You can also turn off auto refresh if it is disturbing to see it continually blinking or trying to refresh. Right now, nothing has been run, but we can see that there is already a test case status, and then there are a couple of tests that there is no status for, and that either means that tests have not been defined or not run. I believe it means it has not been defined. So before we see anything, we can run all tests right here, and that goes and kicks off the back end unit tests. The unit test may take a moment to run, and it's executed asynchronously, so we don't see an update yet, and we won't see anything new until the tests are complete. When we look in the back end, what is happening, I'll go ahead and pick SGH because it had the most tests defined. And if we look, we see some messages have been injected. So the unit test classes are injecting messages in as if it's running through the production. And I'll go ahead and click on one. And we can see, looks like it came from the service, but these are just our test messages. And it will be routed. And right here, it goes through a very simple transformation, but and then is just queued at the operation. But the unit test results will be able to inspect routing as well as transformation results. If we go back and look at the message viewer, we can see that more tests have been injected. It's actually running through all the tests in the production when that button is clicked, and the results are added to the table, and that is what the API is returning to the test dashboard. Now we have some results that have returned, and you can see that there's a summary of the passing, the failed, and the pending, and it seems like there's a lot of past tests. We also see the most recent failure, so this is useful if you see that the production is down or the service isn't running. But let's take a look at the summary. These two, the tests are still pending, and that means that the unit test may have been defined, but there was no test case that was actually run. And that's one of the asks from the IDEA portal, was that you can tell in the project which tests have been run or not and the statuses of current testing. We can see for SGH ADT unit tests, there have been some tests run, so we see the statuses here, and we can click on View Details to get more information. When we view the details, if there are multiple runs, multiple tests, you can use the pagination to click through the results. You can also filter the results. So there was a lot of past, but let's just look at the past ones. You can also sort, it's already sorted here, but you can sort by test case name. And we can see that within this test case, test correct assigning authority for A01, a lot of these past values right now are log messages, right? And so we have that information here, but we really care about the assertions and whether those were passed or failed, because the log messages are always considered passed. So let's look at failed. That's a little bit more interesting. We can see right here, there was an issue, and we see the message that was returned. And so knowing this, we can look further into what happened there. On this test message A01, this assertion, it was asserting that what the return value was from the transformation, and it was incorrect or not as expected. And so this gives us information to drill down and do further testing. If you want to look at more information, this just gives a different view, a little bit easier to look at. And it also returns the duration and the counter information from the unit test table. And you can sort by date time as well. The APIs are all based around a project structure. I am looking at the Iris app namespace, and if you open up this interop, we just defined this as our package name, and then our project name is just interoperability project. But as long as everything is organized into a package structure with a project name, the rest of this code is what you would find in interoperability production. Those are routing rules. You may have transformations. This structure doesn't really matter. It can be organized according to whatever the project standards are. The key thing is there is a unit test folder, And inside the unit test folder or package, that is where all the unit tests are organized for each of the interfaces. The unit test class is based off of an open source project by Alex Woodhead, the unit test rule set project, and that is also available on the Open Exchange. We've modified it a little bit for our purposes. In this setup, you can also run the tests individually from here. But in this setup, each test case is defined. Every method with a test in front of it is a test case, and the results from that will be run and recorded into unit test tables in the back end. In this case right here, there's only one test case, and a feature of this is the test messages can be embedded and packaged along with the unit tests. This other example here is a bit more complete, and we can see that there are more test cases defined. So when this test is run, all these test cases are executed, and then the results gathered and returned to the dashboard. Thank you very much for your consideration. Please do check out the IRIS Unit Test Dashboard project on the Open Exchange, and we welcome any feedback.